My name is Sarah Jensen, and at 34 years old, I discovered the person stealing from me while I fought cancer was the same person holding my hand through chemotherapy. If you've ever trusted someone completely, only to have that trust shattered when you were at your most vulnerable, this story might feel painfully familiar. The first time I vomited blood, I knew something was wrong. What I didn't know was that my diagnosis would reveal not cancer cells in my body, but a darkness in my sister's heart that had been hiding there all along. Hit that subscribe button and leave a comment if you've ever discovered someone wasn't who you thought they were when you needed them most. 5 years before my diagnosis, our parents died in a car accident on their way home from celebrating their 35th wedding anniversary. Their deaths left me and my older sister Emma suddenly orphaned in our early 30s. We'd always been close, but grief cemented our bond into something I thought was unbreakable. Emma was 36, confident and outgoing, working as a financial advisor at Portland Trust Bank. I was the quieter sister, running my own small graphic design business from my modest 2-bedroom house in the Portland suburbs. After our parents died, Emma and I made a tearful promise over their caskets that we would always protect each other. "We're all we have now," she whispered, squeezing my hand so tight it hurt. I took that promise. My life before cancer was ordinary. I worked with small local businesses creating logos, websites, and marketing materials. I had a few close friends, a small garden I tended religiously, and a calico cat named Pickle who ruled my house with judgmental stares and occasional affection. My sister lived across town in a sleek downtown apartment that cost 3 times my mortgage payment. We met every Sunday for brunch and called each other almost daily. Unlike Emma, who dated constantly, I'd been single for 3 years after a bad breakup. My business kept me busy, and honestly, I enjoyed the quiet independence of answering to no one but myself and Pickle. Emma often joked that I was boring, but I was content with my simple life. I had enough money saved to feel secure, good health, and dreams of eventually buying a cabin on the Oregon coast. Then came the fatigue, the unexplained weight loss, the pain that started as an occasional twinge and grew into a constant companion. When I finally saw a doctor, his face told me everything before his words confirmed it. Stage 3 pancreatic cancer. The room seemed to shrink around me as he explained survival rates, treatment options, and next steps. "Do you have someone who can come to get you?" the doctor asked. "You shouldn't drive home alone after news like this." Without hesitation, I called Emma. She arrived at the clinic in 20 minutes, her eyes wide with fear when she saw my face. I'll never forget how she held me in the parking lot as I sobbed into her shoulder. "I've got you, Sarah," she whispered. "We'll fight this together." And for a while, that's exactly what happened. Emma drove me to every appointment, took detailed notes when I was too overwhelmed to process information, and researched treatment options obsessively. When chemotherapy began, she arranged her work schedule to accommodate my treatment days, bringing magazines, snacks, and conversation to distract me from the poison dripping into my veins. The chemo made everything taste like metal. Food became my enemy, each bite requiring tremendous effort. The only exception was Emma's homemade vegetable soup, which I could somehow keep down. She made huge batches, carefully portioning them into containers that lined my freezer. "Heat it when you're feeling bad," she'd instruct, demonstrating a level of nurturing I'd never seen from my usually career-focused sister. "Promise me you'll eat, Sarah. You need strength to fight." On my worst days, Emma would sit beside my hospital bed, holding the plastic basin as I vomited, then gently wiping my mouth and offering ice chips. She'd brush what remained of my hair as it fell out in clumps, assuring me I looked beautiful even as I transformed into someone I barely recognized in the mirror. "I never thought I'd be bald at 34, I joked weakly one day, running my hand over my smooth scalp. "It's temporary," Emma replied, kissing the top of my head. "And besides, you have a perfectly shaped head. Who knew?" When the medical bills started arriving, they came like an avalanche, burying me in papers I couldn't focus on through the fog of my medication. Insurance covered much of the treatment, but the deductibles, copays, and uncovered expenses quickly depleted my savings. My business suffered too, as I could only work a few hours on my good days, which became increasingly rare. "Let me handle this," Emma said one evening, finding me at my kitchen table, staring blankly at a pile of bills while tears slid down my face. "You're shaking too much to write checks anyway." She was right. The chemo had given me a constant tremor in my hands. Simple tasks like buttoning shirts or signing my name had become frustrating challenges. When Emma gently took my checkbook and began organizing the bills into neat piles, I felt nothing but relief and gratitude. "I don't know what I'd do without you," I told her, my voice cracking. "That's what sisters are for," she replied, not looking up from her methodical sorting. "You'd do the same for me." And I would have, without question. As treatment progressed, Emma's role in my life expanded. She set up automatic payments for my recurring bills. She deposited my disability checks when they started coming. She coordinated with my few remaining clients who stayed loyal despite my reduced capacity. When brain fog made me forget appointments or medication schedules, Emma created color-coded charts and set alarms on my phone. My independence slipped away so gradually that I barely noticed its departure. On days when walking from my bedroom to the bathroom left me breathless, I couldn't summon the energy to care about financial matters or business decisions. Emma handled everything with brisk efficiency, and I surrendered control without resistance. "You focus on healing," she'd say. "I'll take care of everything else." 4 months into my treatment, my oncologist cautiously mentioned the word responding. The tumors were shrinking slightly. Not remission, not even close, but a tiny victory worth celebrating. Emma brought champagne to my house that night, though I could only manage a single sip before the nausea hit. "You're going to beat this," she said with such conviction that I almost believed her. "You're the strongest person I know." If you've ever been seriously ill, you know how these small moments of hope become everything. They're the handholds you grip when sliding down the cliff of despair. I clung to that sliver of good news, to my sister's unwavering confidence, and to the possibility of a future beyond hospital rooms and medication schedules. What I didn't realize was that, while I was fighting for my life, my sister was systematically stealing it from me. The discovery happened by accident, as most betrayals are uncovered. It was a Wednesday afternoon, and Emma was driving me home from a doctor's appointment. I'd been unusually alert that day. The fog of chemo temporarily lifted between treatment cycles. When my phone slipped between the seats of her car, I leaned down to retrieve it, my fingers brushing against a stack of papers tucked under her seat. "What's this?" I asked, pulling out what appeared to be bank statements. "Oh, some work stuff," Emma replied quickly, attempting to snatch them back with one hand while driving. "Client documents, confidential." But I'd already seen enough to recognize my own account numbers at the top of the page. Something about her reaction, too quick, too dismissive, triggered an alarm in my mind. "These are my statements," I said, unfolding the papers despite my still trembling hands. "Why do you have these under your car seat?" "I was going to file them for you," she answered. "You know I've been handling all your paperwork. You probably don't even remember giving them to me." She was right that my memory had become unreliable. Chemo brain, the cognitive impairment that often accompanies treatment, had left me forgetting conversations, losing track of days, and sometimes struggling to find basic words. But something about this felt wrong. "I'll look at them later," I said, tucking the statements into my purse before she could object further. That night, after Emma left, I spread the statements across my kitchen table. At first glance, they seemed ordinary: deposits from my disability insurance, automatic payments for utilities and my mortgage, and the occasional grocery store purchase. But as I examined them more carefully, unfamiliar transactions began to jump out at me. A $750 withdrawal from an ATM I had never visited. A $930 charge at Nordstrom. $1,200 spent at a luxury resort in Cabo San Lucas. $450 at an upscale day spa. These were not my purchases. I hadn't been to a mall in months. I certainly hadn't been to Mexico. With shaking hands, I reached for my laptop and logged into my online banking account, something I realized I hadn't done since becoming ill. Emma had been giving me verbal summaries of my finances, always reassuring. "You're doing fine," or "Don't worry, I've got everything covered." The reality on my screen told a different story. My checking account, which should have contained at least $8,000 in disability payments, showed a balance of $1,267. My savings account, which had held over $20,000 before my diagnosis, was down to $3,412. My heart raced as I clicked through page after page of transactions I didn't recognize. Restaurant charges for meals I never ate, airlines tickets to destinations I have never visited, regular cash withdrawals of $500 or more. The evidence was overwhelming, yet my mind scrambled to find alternative explanations. There was a mistake. Someone had stolen my identity. Maybe Emma was moving money to another account for safekeeping. Maybe anything except what was becoming clear. My sister, my only family, my caretaker, and supposed protector, was stealing from me. That night, when Emma called for our usual evening check-in, I forced myself to sound normal, to laugh at her jokes and answer her questions about how I was feeling. After we hung up, I sat in the dark, stroking Pickle's fur and trying to process this betrayal. Part of me wanted to confront Emma immediately, to scream and demand answers. But a cold, calculating voice in my head, one I recognized as my own, whispered that I needed more evidence. If Emma had been stealing from me, I needed to know the full extent before confronting her. And I needed a plan. In my weakened state, dependent on her for transportation, medication management, and daily help, an accusation without preparation could leave me in a dangerous position. So I began investigating. The next day, I called my bank directly and requested copies of all statements from the past 6 months to be mailed to me. I created a new email account and changed the password on my existing banking accounts. When Emma came to help me to a doctor's appointment, I pretended to be more exhausted than usual, closing my eyes in the car so she would feel free to make calls, thinking I was asleep. "Yeah, I'll be free this weekend," I heard her tell someone while I feigned sleep. "Sarah's doing poorly, so she'll be resting at home. I was thinking we could drive up to that winery in the Willamette Valley. My treat. My treat with my money." Over the next 2 weeks, I gathered evidence methodically. I recorded our conversations using an app on my phone, capturing moments when Emma lied about my financial situation. I photographed my bank statements and created a spreadsheet tracking unauthorized purchases. I discovered Emma had opened a credit card in my name, a feat accomplished easily since she had access to all my personal information and charged over $15,000 to it. The betrayal cut deeper with each discovery. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a one-time desperate act. This was calculated, continuous theft that had begun almost immediately after my diagnosis. While I was vomiting from chemotherapy, Emma was shopping with my disability checks. While I was losing my hair, she was taking weekend trips with friends. While I wondered if I would survive to see another birthday, she was getting spa treatments on my dime. What hurt most was realizing these weren't financial transactions. They were moments of joy and pleasure that Emma was experiencing with resources meant to keep me alive. Each withdrawal represented medicine I might not be able to afford, treatments insurance wouldn't cover, and rent payments that might be missed if my illness continued long-term. One night, Emma came by with groceries and offered to make dinner. I excused myself, saying I needed to rest, but instead positioned my phone to record their conversation while she thought I was napping in my bedroom. Through my partially closed door, I watched her settle comfortably on my couch, kick off her shoes, and make a call. "Hey, it's me," she said, her voice casual in a way it never was around me anymore. "No, she's sleeping. Listen, you won't believe what I bought today." I heard her describe in detail a designer handbag she'd purchased, laughing about how she'd gotten such a deal. "The best part is Sarah's so out of it most of the time, she has no idea what's happening with her money," Emma continued, lowering her voice slightly. "The chemo brain is real. Sometimes she asks the same question 3 times in one conversation." My stomach clenched as I heard her mocking my cognitive struggles, the very vulnerabilities she pretended to support me through. "Honestly," she went on, "I'm not even sure she's going to make it. The doctors are optimistic to her face, but you should see how they look at her chart. If things go south, I'm the beneficiary of everything anyway." The casual way she discussed my possible death sent ice through my veins. I had indeed named Emma as my beneficiary on my life insurance policy, my retirement accounts, and even my will, which left her my house. After our parents died, it seemed the obvious choice. Who else would I choose but my only sister, my supposed best friend? But now her words revealed an ugly truth. Emma wasn't stealing my money, she was betting on my death. The next morning, I pretended everything was normal when Emma arrived to take me to my chemotherapy appointment. I let her help me into her car, accepted the blanket she tucked around my legs, and thanked her for the ginger candies she offered to help with nausea. Each act of clear kindness now felt like a performance, and I found myself studying her face, wondering how I had missed the deception behind her concerned expressions. At the treatment center, I asked Emma if she would mind getting me a specific magazine from the hospital gift shop, knowing it would give me a few minutes alone with my oncologist, Dr. Patel. Dr. Patel, I said once Emma left, I need to ask you something important. Has anyone, specifically my sister, asked you about my prognosis? About how long have I? Dr. Patel's expression shifted. Your sister is very concerned about your care, he said. She asks detailed questions after each visit. What kind of questions? He hesitated. She's particularly interested in timeline projections, which is normal for family members. Has she suggested I'm doing worse than I am? Dr. Patel's silence was answer enough. Finally, he said, Sarah, is everything okay between you and your sister? Do you have concerns about your care arrangements? I'm handling it, I assured him, hearing Emma's footsteps approaching. But I need a favor. From now on, I want all medical information given to me, not to Emma, and I would like to record our conversations about my prognosis. He nodded, looking troubled but professional. Of course, you're my patient, your wishes come first. When Emma returned with the magazine, Dr. Patel made a point of addressing all information directly to me, asking for my consent before sharing details. I noticed Emma's slight frown, the way she tried to redirect the conversation, asking questions about worst-case scenarios that Dr. Patel now deflected. After my treatment, feeling nauseated but determined, I asked Emma to stop by my house before taking me to hers for the night. I claimed I needed to pick up different pajamas, but my real purpose was to check my mail. There, among bills and junk, was a letter from my cousin Maggie in Seattle, someone I hadn't spoken to in months. Once Emma was busy in the kitchen, I quickly opened the letter. Dear Sarah, it read, I wanted you to know we're all thinking of you during this difficult time. The $500 I contributed to your funeral fund isn't much, but I hope it helps ease your mind knowing these arrangements won't burden Emma after you're gone. Your sister is so strong, organizing everything while caring for you. We're here for both of you. Funeral fund? My hands trembled as I read the letter twice more. Emma had been collecting money from our extended family for my funeral, a funeral that was far from inevitable, according to my doctors. I quickly tucked the letter into my pocket, mind racing. That night at Emma's apartment, I pretended to be exhausted from treatment and went to bed early in her guest room. Once I heard her shower running, I slipped into the living room where she'd left her laptop open. Guilt nagged at me as I began searching through her emails. This invasion of privacy went against every principle I held, but self-preservation pushed me forward. In her email, I found messages to nearly every member of our extended family, describing my condition in increasingly dire terms. Sarah is trying to stay positive, but the doctors don't hold much hope, she'd written to our aunt in Florida. She's refusing to discuss end-of-life care, so I'm trying to prepare without upsetting her. To our cousins, the treatments aren't working as well as we'd hoped. I'm trying to arrange everything so Sarah doesn't have to worry about funeral costs or what happens to her house. To friends, it's just a matter of time now. Sarah's putting on a brave face, but we all know pancreatic cancer doesn't often end well. All lies. Manipulative, calculated lies designed to elicit sympathy and, more importantly, financial contributions to her funeral fund for me. A fund I now suspect went directly into her pocket. But the most damning evidence came in her search history. Life insurance payout timeline. How to claim inheritance as sole beneficiary. Average survival rate pancreatic cancer stage 3. How soon can you sell inherited property? And most chillingly, is it normal to feel relieved when someone dies after a long illness? I closed the laptop carefully, feeling like I might vomit again, not from chemo this time, but from the sickening realization that my sister was actively hoping for my death. The woman who held my hand through treatment, who brought me soup and blankets, who knew my deepest fears, was calculating the value of my death. I barely slept that night, my mind working frantically to process this betrayal and formulate a response. By morning, a plan had begun to take shape, one that required strength I wasn't sure I possessed in my weakened state, but one that would expose Emma's betrayal once and for all. Over the next week, I began laying the groundwork. First, I contacted my bank and explained the situation, providing evidence of fraudulent transactions. The bank manager, horrified by my story, helped me open new accounts and place fraud alerts on my existing ones. Next, I called the police to file a report about identity theft, carefully documenting Emma's unauthorized use of my personal information. I consulted a lawyer, using a telehealth appointment so I wouldn't need Emma to drive me. The attorney confirmed what I suspected. Emma's actions constituted multiple felonies, financial elder abuse, which applies to disabled adults as well, identity theft, and fraud. The evidence I had gathered would be more than enough for criminal charges. Most importantly, I reached out to our family members individually, asking if they could come to Portland for a special dinner the following weekend. "I'm having a good spell between treatments," I explained, "and I want to see everyone together." I was careful not to mention the true purpose of the gathering, knowing Emma might intercept messages or calls. As the date approached, I grew increasingly anxious. Emma noticed my withdrawal, attributing it to my illness rather than my knowledge of her betrayal. "You seem distant lately," she commented 2 days before the planned dinner. "Are you feeling worse? Should we cancel with the family?" "No," I insisted. "I need this. Seeing everyone might be exactly what I need right now." On the night of the dinner, Emma arrived early to help me prepare, though I had already arranged for a catering service to deliver everything. Another expense on my rapidly dwindling credit card, but one I deemed necessary for what was to come. "You look better," Emma remarked as I carefully applied makeup, covering the pallor that had become my normal complexion. "Almost like your old self." "I feel stronger today," I said, which wasn't entirely untrue. Righteous anger had given me an energy I hadn't felt in months. Our family members arrived gradually. Aunt Patricia and Uncle Robert from Seattle, cousins Maggie and Tyler with their spouses, our mother's sister Linda from Eugene, and several others. 14 people in total, all of whom had contributed to my funeral fund, according to the records I had found in Emma's emails. Emma played the perfect hostess, directing people to seats, serving drinks, and accepting compliments on her caregiving devotion. I watched her performance with new eyes, noting how she subtly emphasized her exhaustion and how she positioned herself as both martyr and saint. "Emma has been my rock through all of this," I said when everyone was seated, raising my water glass in a toast. The approving murmurs around the table made my sister beam with pride. "I honestly don't know what I would have done without her these past months." "That's what family does," Emma replied modestly. "Sarah would do the same for me." "Would I?" I asked, setting down my glass. "Would I steal your disability checks while you were vomiting from chemotherapy? Would I open credit cards in your name and max them out? Would I tell everyone you were dying when your doctors were actually seeing improvement?" The room went silent. Emma's smile froze, then slowly dissolved as she realized what was happening. "Sarah, the medication is making you confused again," she said quickly, reaching for my hand across the table. "Remember how we talked about the chemo brain? You get these paranoid thoughts sometimes." I pulled my hand away. "No confusion, Emma, clarity." I turned to address our stunned family members. "Emma has been stealing from me since the day I was diagnosed. She's taken nearly $40,000 from my accounts. And that funeral fund you've all been contributing to, there is no funeral fund. The money went straight to her." "That's ridiculous," Emma protested, but her face had drained of color. "I've been managing Sarah's finances because she can't. Yes, I've used her accounts occasionally when she asked me to pick things up for her." "Like a $1,200 weekend in Cabo," I interrupted, sliding printed bank statements across the table. "Or $800 at Nordstrom, or the spa days and wine tour and expensive restaurants." Our Aunt Patricia picked up the statements, her expression shifting from confusion to horror as she examined the transactions. "While you all thought I was at death's door, based on what Emma told you, I've actually been responding well to treatment," I continued. "My oncologist is cautiously optimistic, but Emma has been telling you otherwise, soliciting donations for arrangements that aren't needed." "Is this true?" Uncle Robert demanded, turning to Emma. "Of course not," Sarah's confused. "The cancer has spread to her brain, the doctors told me." "I recorded my last 3 appointments with Dr. Patel," I interrupted, holding up my phone. "Would you like to hear what he actually said about my prognosis?" Emma's eyes darted around the room, seeking allies and finding none. Her breathing quickened as she realized the carefully constructed narrative was collapsing around her. "You don't understand," she finally said, her voice breaking. "I've put my entire life on hold for Sarah. Do you have any idea how hard it's been? The endless doctor appointments, the middle-of-the-night calls, the constant caregiving. Don't I deserve something for that?" The naked selfishness of her response shocked even me. Our cousin Maggie gasped audibly. "I have proof of everything," I said, my voice steady despite the emotion churning inside me. "Bank records, recorded conversations, emails to all of you lying about my condition, and evidence that she opened accounts in my name. I've already filed police reports and contacted her employer's ethics department." At the mention of her job, Emma's expression shifted from defensive to panicked. As a financial advisor handling client assets, her career would be instantly destroyed by evidence of financial exploitation. "You wouldn't," she whispered. "I already have," I confirmed. "The police asked me to contact them when this dinner ends. They're waiting for my call." What followed was chaos. Emma alternated between angry denials and tearful pleas for understanding. Some family members stepped outside, too overwhelmed to witness the implosion. Others peppered me with questions about the extent of Emma's deception. Aunt Patricia sat with her arm around me, murmuring apologies for not seeing through Emma's lies. When the police arrived 30 minutes later, Emma had progressed to bargaining. "I'll pay it all back," she promised desperately. "Every cent. We can work this out privately as a family. There's no need for legal involvement." But as the officers escorted her from my home, reading her rights as they placed her in the patrol car, I felt no satisfaction, only a profound, aching sadness for what we had both lost. The sister I thought I had, the sister I believed would always protect me, had never truly existed. The weeks that followed were difficult but transformative. Without Emma's help, I had to rebuild my support system from scratch. Friends I'd lost touch with during my illness stepped up with meal deliveries and transportation to appointments. My neighbors created a schedule to check on me daily. Even clients from my graphic design business offered help, one of them connecting me with her daughter, who was a home health aide. The legal process moved forward. Emma was charged with many felonies, ultimately accepting a plea deal that included restitution, probation, and community service. Her employment at the bank was terminated immediately. The professional consequences of her actions would follow her for life, even after the legal penalties were satisfied. My family members were horrified to discover their funeral donations had gone directly into Emma's pocket. They redirected their generosity, creating a genuine fund to help with my medical expenses. This money, combined with a victims' compensation program I qualified for, allowed me to pursue an experimental treatment my insurance wouldn't cover. 3 months after Emma's arrest, my oncologist used the word remission for the first time. The tumor had shrunk significantly. The experimental treatment was working. While pancreatic cancer often returns, I now have something I'd almost lost: hope for a future. Emma and I haven't spoken since the night of her arrest. Sometimes, I catch myself reaching for my phone to call her when something good happens, forgetting for a moment the depth of her betrayal. Grief for our lost relationship hits me in unexpected waves, as painful in its way as the cancer itself. I still don't fully understand how the sister who once held my hand through the worst moments of treatment could simultaneously plot to profit from my suffering. Perhaps Emma had always resented me in ways I never recognized. Perhaps the prospect of inheriting my modest assets awakened a greed that had lain dormant. Or perhaps caring for a seriously ill person revealed character flaws that might otherwise have remained hidden. The hardest question, the one that keeps me awake at night, is whether I could have prevented this by being less trusting, by maintaining control even when I was at my weakest. But illness strips away our defenses, leaving us vulnerable in ways the healthy cannot imagine. When every ounce of energy goes toward fighting for your life, there's nothing left for fighting against betrayal. Last week, I received a letter from Emma, sent through her lawyer. She wrote that she was in therapy, working to understand her actions. She asked for forgiveness, for another chance at being sisters. I haven't decided how or if I'll respond. Some betrayals cut too deep for simple reconciliation. What I do know is that cancer taught me about my physical strength, while Emma's betrayal taught me about my emotional resilience. Both tried to take everything from me. Both failed. 6 months after that fateful family dinner, I sat in Dr. Patel's office receiving the news that my latest scan showed no evidence of disease. As I left the hospital, weak but walking under my own power, I realized something profound. Emma had stolen my money, my trust, and nearly my will to fight. But unlike cancer, dealing with betrayal was something I could control. I reclaimed my finances, my health, and most importantly, my power to decide who deserves a place in my life. Some days, that feels like the greatest recovery of all. Have you ever discovered that someone you trusted completely was betraying you? How did you handle it? Leave a comment below and share your experience. And if this story resonated with you, hit the like button and subscribe for more stories about overcoming life's darkest betrayals. Sometimes the person holding your hand is the same one picking your pocket. But recognizing that truth, painful as it may be, can be the first step toward healing that has nothing to do with medicine.